Okay. All right. Well, Manuel, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you guys for thinking about me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a new venture for Alondra and I. She this past fall she started talking to me about podcasting. Well, she's told me that she listens to a lot of podcasts, and then
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, I've never even listened to a single one. And but then we started talking about it. It's like, you know what? It'd be great to have a podcast where we just explore many different aspects of our Latino culture
Hmm.
and interview people, prominent people in our community, specifically our music community, because that's who we are,
Right.
and get to know their backstories. We know everybody, we know where everybody is, that's prominent, but we want to know how they got there, because as an educator, I'm always talking to young people, students. Like Alondra was one of my students a few years ago, and was trying to convince them that everyone started somewhere, and you shouldn't feel like the path is too long or whatever. Everyone starts somewhere, and you get where you're gonna go through hard work and dedication, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I heard someone say the other day that I think it was a quote from like Benjamin Franklin or something like that, and saying that opportunity sometimes shows up looking in overalls and work. Like it's yeah, it doesn't just happen. It takes effort and energy and my wife always reminds me, persistence is sticking through the difficult times, not just giving up when things are challenging.
Right.
So absolutely, absolutely. I don't think you'll find anybody that is worth their salt that didn't have to really work hard and earn what they've achieved. Hmm.
Right. Persistence when things are going smooth, that's not persistence, that's luck.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I always say when things get hard, I say, well, this is where the rubber meets the road. Here's, aquí está lo difícil. Here's where we really got to, stay focused because anybody can make it through the easy stuff, you know. So I always say those who say it can't be done shouldn't get in the way of those who are doing it.
Right, 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 right. Yeah. How have these past couple of years been with all the COVID stuff and all that?
Well, when you're a small business owner, you're always in a pandemic. You're
Yeah.
always, and especially when you're a small business owner and an artist. And I have to constantly remind my clients that they're small business owners. If you're a musician, I say, unless you think you're going to be sitting in your basement, playing music, and that record label guy is going to get a flat tire in front of your house and get out to change it and hear your music and run over and sign a deal for you. That doesn't happen. You have
Yeah.
to look at yourself as a small business owner, which means you have to think about how you're getting your story out, getting your music out, your product out, whatever it might be. So when the pandemic hit, we got to remember we first had a tornado that happened here a week before the pandemic.
That's
Where,
right.
where technically shut down the whole world, but we got hit with a tornado just 3/4 of a mile from here. It took out both my daughter's schools, all of our friends, many of our friends' homes. It hit at midnight, and at 12:15 in the morning, 15 minutes later, I was literally pulling people out of houses, and
Wow.
we got to work that week. So we had the tornado, we had the world shut down. We had the largest power outage I believe, definitely in the state of Tennessee. It might have even been in the United States that happened here. And then we had the explosion at Christmas on Christmas Day in downtown Nashville. So 2020 was quite a year for us. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
Adding all of those things into already a challenge of how do we stay relevant. I remember thinking, that was our 92nd year of business. I said, well, I guess 92 years was a good run. Here we go.
Yeah.
um, so it was
Wow.
really trying to become creative and figure out ways that we could continue to stay in business. We looked at grants that we could do. We did educational videos. And then, just by the grace of God, repairs that we had an 18-wheeler full of orchestra instruments or strings, violins, cellos, double basses that we had gotten late December in 2019, and that kept us busy through the summer. So yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, that's a whole lot. Jeez, but you made it through all that.
Yeah, and the one thing that my wife and I decided was, first of all, we made sure that we took care of the people that work with us, because they're family to us.
Right.
So whether they went home or whatever, we paid them as if they're here 5 days a week, 40 hours. We paid them the same. And then we looked to find ways that we could help our fellow man, and we have a music venue also called the Music Makers Stage. So we started doing live stream shows where we would pay the artist to come and perform. The show was free for the viewer, and we'd set up a virtual tip jar so they could earn income that way. And maybe some of them had just had albums that they were about to go on tour, like that. So we really tend to feel like the best thing to do is just keep doing what you would always do, which for us, we're very community minded. So
well, that's great. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, we can. I want to get into that, a little bit of that too, as well, when we start talking some more in the interview questions. But right now, I want to go back, and Alondra has some questions here in a second. But we really want to go back and hear the beginnings, your beginnings, how you got started and all that. Alondra, do you have anything to add before you start with the questions?
No, I mean, definitely. We know you as the one that takes us out of a pinch, like hearing that you're community minded, all that. You provide so much for us. We need something, we know to contact Manuel. And even though we're in Texas, you're in Tennessee, that's how we know you. So first of all, we're very grateful, and you're very busy. So thank you again for taking a little bit of your time and giving that to us. So we really want to, make the most out of it. And like I said, we know you as Manuel, the owner of Delgado Guitars, La Tradicion, and stuff like that. And I know you said that it's a family business, so you've been at this for a while, and your family has been at it for 92 years, you said. But our question is to you: where were you born, and where were you raised? How was your childhood like?
Yeah, so we're actually in our 94th year now, 92 in 2020 when we were going through. Wow. Yeah, the business started in 1928 with my grandfather and my great uncle in Torreon, in Coahuila. And then they moved the business to Juarez in the 30s, and then eventually to East LA, Boyle Heights in 1948. And that's where I was born. I was born 1971. I'll be 51 this year. But I was born there, and fortunate enough my father continued the business. He was second generation. So I grew up around the shop. That was my life. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and, worked her tail off raising 3 kids and taking care of us and doing everything that had to be done, while my father, ran the business and did side hustles of buying cars and fixing them up and selling them to continue to make additional income. When you get older and you have children, you start to realize, oh my gosh, how did my parents do all this? But for me, growing up, I started playing guitar when I was about 5 years old, and I was brought up on classical guitar. So a lot of people tend to think that my first love is either like mariachi or country or whatever, but it's actually classical. I love classical music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's my heart. I absolutely love it. And I'm fortunate to be on the board with the symphony here. So, it gives me an opportunity to hear some great music. But I started doing repairs when I was 7 years old. And I always say that my dad knew what he was doing. He would let me make like little slingshot guns or whittle wood, or, make little tiny guitars. And now I know, because I do this with my daughters, you're teaching them the skills of using the tools. So when I was 7, I would start doing things like changing machine heads and strings. And if a customer came in and needed to buy a pick, my dad would say, hey, go help that customer. And whenever they would come and do show on the shop, he would make sure that we were present so that we could also be included in that. And it really taught me for public speaking, how to address clients. My grandfather and dad had this attitude of everybody who comes to the door deserves equal respect. You don't push the person aside who's buying at that time a 25-cent pick because suddenly Feliciano walks in or something like that. It's like everybody has the same amount of respect. And I know that my parents modeling that is why I'm the man that I am today. And we try to be the same person here in the shop that we are out on the street, that we are on Sunday mornings going to church, and just try to be consistent as possible. So yeah, I was very, very fortunate growing up in the shop and learning the craft. And then I wanted to beat my dad's record. He was 14 when he built his first guitar. So I built my first instrument when I was 12. I built a Requinto Romántico, which I still have to this day. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah. And my oldest daughter beat my record. She built the mandolin, finished it 2 weeks after her 10th birthday. So she's the fourth generation.
Wow.
Yeah. And my 8-year-old is now gunning for her record.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And this is all in LA?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised there. I didn't move to Nashville, where I'm at now, until 17 years ago. I moved here in 2005.
Okay.
So, I grew up in the shop. My dad, when he was in his 30s, to lose weight, he started exercising and started boxing. There was a good friend of my grandfather's who was a trainer. He used to train boxers like Armando Muniz and different fighters like that. So the next thing, my dad's training fighters to fight in the Olympics and started training the LAPD boxing team. And I grew up boxing and sparring with the cops over there in LA when I was just in middle school and high school. So I worked in the shop up until about 18. And then when I was going to college, I was working other jobs that were closer to school. And I started considering going into the police department.
Okay.
I was actually going through the academy process with the LA County Sheriffs. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and I decided to just withdraw and go back to the shop and never look back. So,
So my question to you, you said you started with classical guitar. Was that something that your grandfather passed down to you as well?
Yeah. So my father is the one, and my mom and dad are the ones that really got us involved in classical. My grandfather and great uncle were musicians, and my father was. I know I'm going to be biased, but I mean I get to hear some really amazing musicians. My dad was a really great singer and great guitar player, and my dad was 6'5". He was a big guy. But he had a deep, when he talked, he had a really deep voice, but he was able to sing pretty high as well. Wow. And just had a really, really incredible voice, but learned to play a lot by ear. So I always say when I was taking lessons, I would sit with the guitar, and then my instructor would sit opposite of me with his guitar, and then he would put the music kind of in between us, and he would say, okay, we're going to play this piece. So he'd play like Romance or something, and I would watch his fingers and listen to the tone. And I took lessons for 4 years. I never learned how to read music. I would memorize when to turn the page, and that's how I learned to play. I was cheating, but I would just listen, and to this day I can make out some notes good enough to get around, but I play by ear still. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Excuse me. Let me turn off my phone. Sorry about that. Cool. That's so. Then, so did you graduate from high school in LA?
I went to Bishop Amat High School. It's a Catholic high school.
Okay.
Yeah, ironically, I just got asked to go back and speak at my high school, which I'm like, man, too bad those nuns that we used to scold me and hit my knuckles aren't still around. They would have never thought I'd be the one to be asked to go back. But yeah,
Yeah.
I went to high school, Bishop Amant in La Puente, California. And then I went to Fullerton Junior College, Fullerton College in Fullerton, California. And I was taking police science courses there. And I went there for a few years, but I'm not one to sit in a classroom. So
Right.
yeah.
So then when did you officially take, you said after your dad passed away, you took over the business?
So when my father passed away, I was in the shop in Los Angeles. He died in 1996.
Okay.
And then in about 2000, just, left the business, difference of opinion, chose to kind of wanted to continue the way the business was ran, the way my father had intended and so forth. And rather than try to create drama, I just walked away from it and got into managing automotive centers and ran businesses for a while. My wife and I were married in 2000. My wife is a songwriter. So we would travel to Nashville every year for Tin Pan South, which is a songwriting event that they have every year here. And a lot of people don't know, but my mom and dad came to Nashville in '93 and fell in love with it and flew me out here with the talks of opening up a shop back then. But that was the same year my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he lost the battle 3 years later. So we had forgotten about that. But when my wife and I were traveling back and forth, I decided to see if she would want to come out here and pursue her passion of songwriting. And she was the one that really encouraged me to get back into making instruments again. So I started all over again without anything but memories and, but I really know for a fact that all of that was a blessing, because I felt like in a very small way, because I didn't go through the challenges or sacrifices that my grandfather and great uncle did, but I felt like I got to get in touch a little bit with what it was like for them to start over and, or start from scratch, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. And it was a challenge because I wanted to do it right. I wasn't going to try to go back and steal clients or, I just wanted to do my thing. Just wanted to do right by my heart, what I wanted to do, and the legacy and the blessing that I was given, and just put my head down and got to work, and didn't pay attention to all the noise.
Right.
So you talk about people who think that, they see people who are successful and they think that maybe they didn't have any challenges, or there was so many things that were very personal where people were slandering me and saying things. And I just, chose to just keep going. I had the pleasure of talking with Garth Brooks last Friday, do a little name drop there, but he's just a human being. And he said something to me that I'd never heard described this way, but we were talking about, what it's like for him with all the things that are said about him and so forth. And he said, I tell my daughters that, if you're on a ship, you have your course, and you might have all these fireworks that are going on around you, but they're not going to affect the course that the ship is going. They're just making a lot of noise and bright lights, and they're trying to distract you. But you just stay the course, and just, enjoy the fireworks show if you want, or ignore it. And that's kind of how I've lived my life. I'm having all these things that are happening around me, whether positive or negative. And, because you also can't let the positivity get to your head to where suddenly, te creas muy.
Oh yeah.
You're invincible.
Yeah. It's so hard. I know it's so hard to ignore the negativity that sometimes comes your way, but that's it's so hard. And we all say you just ignore it, but it's hard to ignore it. But at the same time, that's what you need to do, because all that's just going to weigh you down from your course.
It weighs you down and it distracts you. if I stop to look at the fireworks or turn towards them to address them, it's now taking me off my course. It's going to take longer for me to achieve my goal, or I may never be able to find back where. And I'm not great at it. Nobody's perfect. There's times when I feel like I need to speak up and retaliate, and I'm not one into horoscope signs or anything, but I'm a Libra, and so I have this thing about justice and balance. So it's really hard when people are saying things that are just flat out lies, not true about you. And what do you stand up for, and what do you choose to just, but I've realized that there's a lot of people that when people are having success, that's when you're the target, and when people are trying to go after you. And I tell my daughters, if you give somebody enough time, they'll show you who they are. Mm-hmm. So if I'm being consistent and people can say, oh, well, how come that person that used to work for me is now doing something else, and they weren't able to maintain it, or they're doing this or they're doing that? It's like, you know what? I guess the proof is in the pudding. We're still going. We're still going strong. People were saying this and saying that, and I just choose to just maintain the course.
Yeah. No, that's exactly. I think that way too. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let my work speak for itself. Mm-hmm. Just let the work speak for itself. You can criticize me, but the work is still there.
Yeah. And I'm not one to pull this card, but the reality is that being Latino, we have greater challenges. And then if you add into that mix being a woman and being a Latino, I mean, good Lord, so, I find it, when we speak of minorities, white women are included in that, because women are a minority.
Yes.
So if you add to that, that they're Black or Latino or, Middle Eastern or whatever it might be, now there's even more challenges that have to be overcome.
Agreed.
So having two little girls, well, one's about to be 14 on Monday, but having two girls, I feel like, if nothing, my main responsibility is to make sure that I'm demonstrating to them what integrity is. If I fail at that, and if I'm, lying to people, treating my customers poorly, being disrespectful to my wife, whatever it might be, that's the image that and the model that I'm setting for them.
Right. No. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my guiding light. What's that?
No, I'm sorry. They learn more by seeing action rather than what you say to them, and obviously that's something that you learned because you saw that from your father, right? And sorry, I even interrupted. It's so nice hearing your story, because you think you're going to do something. You said you were in the police academy, and you're on that ship, and you think it's going to happen there, and you're going to go that way, and that's how you raise your kids, right? You hear that saying, raise your kids with wings and to fly, but roots to come down. And coming back to your roots and just keeping it so traditional and la tradición, and keeping it so focused on, community and character. That's why you are so successful. And that's an awesome, like you said, bringing like your daughters, obviously it was to your grandfather and your father and your tío and stuff like that. But your daughters, that is super important. And that's so refreshing to hear.
And the girls don't even realize, because we're not raising them to know that this is out of the norm. But, they're the first generation of females working in the shop. My daughter is the youngest of our family to ever build an instrument. So they're setting new marks. When we had the first female mayor elected here in Nashville 2 mayors or 3 mayors ago, I pulled my oldest daughter out of school and we went to the inauguration. So you want them to see models of things that are capable. And I remember when Ava, who's my oldest, when she was a baby, I would hold her and I would rock her and I would say to her like things like, when you grow up, do you want to be? And I would think of every profession I could think of and not like exclude the ones that they would say, well, no, this is for a man, and it's no. Mm-hmm. If they have the desire and the skill, then I want them to be able to pursue whatever passion it is that they want.
Yeah.
And I don't even, if they don't want to continue this business, that's fine with me. I'm fine if I'm the last, but I just want them to do whatever brings them joy and lets them be creative.
Agreed. Agreed. Let me ask you this. You had mentioned, obviously, you moved from California to Nashville. Um, did you meet your wife in Nashville, or did you bring her to Nashville from California?
I was dating the daughter of a pastor, and she took me to this church. And then this beautiful woman went up on stage and started singing, and I dumped the pastor's daughter, and I started dating them. That's not quite how it happened, but I like to tell that story. But yeah, I met my wife at church in California. Yeah, we went on our first date September 24th, and I proposed to her March, and we got married in November, and we'll be celebrating 22 years this year. So yeah,
Congratulations. Fantastic.
You wanted.
Yeah.
And so you convinced her to move to Nashville then for the songwriting opportunities.
Yeah, my wife is more of the look before you leap and very cautious. We're very much opposites in that, where I'm like, I say, when I'm talking to God, I go, look, Lord, I'm not that smart, so I'm just going to go for it. And if it's not meant to be, you really got to show me that it's not, because I'm just going to keep working at it. Show me that this isn't something that you want me to do. But I'm not one to kind of sit around and wait for, the signals or the signs. I figure if it's a passion or it's an idea, there's a signal, there's a sign, let's go for it.
All right.
Walking by faith. There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, I was able to, we had actually put an offer down on a house in California. We went, and the inspector was he couldn't tell us not to buy it, but he was telling us every way he could not to buy it by telling us everything that was wrong with it.
Yeah.
And we drove away from there, and I pulled over. I remember it was this bowling alley in San Dimas, California. And we pull into the parking lot, and I said, look, I know you really like this house and you want it. And she says, well, no, I thought you really liked the house and you wanted it. And I was like, no, I don't care. I said, what if we try Nashville? What if we try it? And she said, well, let's think about it. And I said, baby, I can't think about things. We either are going to do it or I'm going to move on to the next thing. And then she said, all right, well, let's look at it. Let's go. So we came out here and visited, looked to see if we'd be able to get work. My wife is a teacher by profession, so there was a shortage of good teachers, so she could have easily gotten a job. I found a job working for a company making banjos and mandolins and square neck resophonics or dobros. So we went back home. We told our family that we were going to do it, and then we moved here in February of 2005. And while I was working for that company, I started setting up a shop in the garage of the house that we were leasing. Within 4 or 5 months, we realized we were staying, and we started looking for a house to purchase, and started in my garage because I didn't want to have customers. I wanted to just build and fulfill orders.
Right.
And people found out I was in town, and then I'd get repairs, and I'd say, okay, sure. And then the garage started getting filled up, and then the basement. Then I added an office to the house, and then a storage unit, and then a second storage unit, and then a third storage unit. And it wasn't until Ava was born and people would come knocking on Saturdays when I just wanted to have time with my daughter to have repairs done that I said, you know what, we need to have some separation. And that's when I moved to the shop here. And that was all around the same time. Also, I was working with a company in Iowa with La Tradicion brand. And, again, you talk about paying attention and staying the course. This company was secretly trying to steal my trademarks and my patents and designs, thinking that I wasn't paying attention. And they would smile to my face, and I would smile right back at them, and I was well aware of what they were doing. And when they went to register their trademark, I already had one in existence. I blocked it. And, they brought me in and they said I was coming in for a branding meeting, but had 2 attorneys and this person and all these people. And they made a mistake in their contract. And when I signed my contract with them, instead of me owning half of the division that I was creating for them, I owned half of their whole company on paper.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get me to say that that was a mistake, and I knew it, and I just sat there silent. And I said, if you guys had come to me honestly and approached me, and we had discussed this instead of like trying to surprise me,
Right.
it would have gone differently. I said, but I'm not answering any of your questions. I'll sit here, I'll listen. I said, but that's not how it's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
long story short, I didn't try to take what wasn't mine. I just took back what was mine.
Right.
And and we parted ways. And it was, it was like it was a David and Goliath, because this is a $15 million a year corporation, and it was just me.
Yeah.
And I had given up a lot of my work to focus on that division for them. So which meant I was sending clients to other friends here in Nashville that did repairs. And they just, one day I went to get on the computer and they cut me off, and then they without notice, they just started removing everything. Basically they fired me, but they didn't even tell me, so here I am, father with 2 babies, 1 newborn, no more insurance, no income, nothing.
Yeah.
And I had to start all over again. And, but the best thing someone can do is tell me that I can't do something or try to block me. And that just gives me the fire. And now my La Tradicion, which Alondra was talking about, is twice as successful as it was with their company of 200 and some odd people. We have a staff of 4.
Wow.
We do more income than their 200, because we know the audience, we know how to respect the community, we know what people are looking for. And the reason we know is because I asked them.
Right.
I asked my clients,
And that's great. Yeah, no, I mean, you're very well respected in the community, and you know that, and we all know that.
Yes, you are.
So that's great. That's a great win with that, against a big corporation. It's always great when the small guy can win against something that big, because those corporations can really throw a lot of money at things.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that the way that I got, the way that I got through that was because of the mariachi community, because I had become friends with educators in Boston, educators throughout Texas, educators in California, all these different, some of them I had known most of my life, but a lot of them were new friends. And they knew me from the trade shows. They knew me from when they would call and need something, and I would take care of them. When that company released me, I had harps that needed to be completed for Northside High School, for Ramon Niño, and for Marta Ocampo. I had no obligation to have to do any of that, but I worked without pay and finished those harps and sent them, because it was the right thing to do, because the kids shouldn't have to pay the price for, can I curse on here, for these a-holes that
but at that point you're talking about your persona, your name, your identity, and so all those those harps and all that coming through with all that just lets people, I mean, when it's all said and done, I mean, I know we put a lot of stock in corporations, but people believe in people, not in corporations.
Right.
Oh yeah. And like for example, I mean, recently, I think, what was it, this year, you took a whole trailer of instruments to my school.
Yeah.
That's what makes it like that. And then we had a talk, and you're just like, just email me and I'll send you that, or whatever happened. And I left that place already, but you leave that mark. And you said that, the mariachi community, well, yes, but that's because something that you did, based on your character.
But I will say, like, even like Alondra, with that example, like, because you and I started the conversation, and then it ended up being like 5 different schools in the area, I think, that came from that initial conversation of orders. I don't take that lightly. I'm not just saying this because it's like the right thing to say or whatever, but I swear I've never seen people who work so hard as music educators. They are some of the hardest working people I've ever seen. They're selfless. The time that they give, people don't realize the early mornings, the late nights, the conferences, the getting the charts. There's just so much that happens. And again, being a parent, it's like, wow, it's so amazing that there's these, these heroes that are scattered throughout the world that are doing this for these kids. And when I have the opportunity to get to talk with and become friends with a lot of these people, my job is to help them be more successful at their job. La Tradicion came about because I got frustrated with seeing these American companies making instruments that were supposedly for the Latino community, but without the input of the Latino community.
Right.
And people were buying them because that it was a lesser expensive option. Especially if you're talking about schools, they can't purchase from a vendor in Mexico. They have to buy it from somebody in the United States. But it was a disservice. I tell a lot of my parents, if you give us a child a inexpensive guitar and the action is too high, and they're not going to know that the guitar isn't correct. They're going to think that they're just not good at that instrument, so they give up. I said, it's like giving your child a laptop and it's missing 3 letters of the alphabet, the space bar, and you expect them to, write you an essay on something. Yeah, you just can't do it.
No, I mean, the instrument you're playing is almost as important as the musician that's playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got to be a quality instrument to get a quality sound.
Yes.
Yep. And our goal, my challenge was, how do we do something of quality that's authentic and make it affordable? So that's why La Tradicion came to be. It's again, it's all through relationships. We even got into doing the trajes because people were saying, man, so and so sent me only half of my order, or they sent it in 3 months and it's been 9 months, or this is wrong. And and again, that goes back to, I had people that worked for me that made mistakes that cost me thousands of dollars. But you don't make the kids or the educator pay the price for it. I would just eat it. Or even if it was a mistake on their part, I wouldn't be like, oh, you made this mistake. It's nope. Hey, you know what? You made a mistake. Learn from it. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
I got trajes upstairs like crazy that were, errors made and things done. And when the person that used to handle that left the company, I thought, oh, well, I don't know anything about trajes. I had learned from, running the business and all these different things. But at the end, it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, John. It's just about taking care of people. It was just another product. So when I would go, well, what is it you need? This is what I need. All right, well then, and we're doing like these beautiful trajes, and I figured out how to do the measurements. You just figure out a system and you figure out how to make sure that you're delivering quality. And if somebody's not happy with something, what can I do to make it right? And that's it. And you get that reputation and people know that they can count on you.
Yes, very much so. So we've been loving hearing about, about your company. We do have a question for you.
Okay.
What's your future plans? What's next? If you
if you can't share.
Yeah, if you can share.
Yeah. There's a pretty exciting thing that I've been working on for about 15 years that might be happening very soon. And it involves a television series.
Wow.
Hey.
That's awesome.
So I've signed a production deal already with, I can't even say who the company is, but they're very well known have produced some very big movies and some very big television travel shows. So that's exciting. We're in talks with that, and more than talks. It's God willing. If anybody's listening to this, send up some prayers. And
yes.
So there's that. Of course, we're continuing with the Delgado guitars. I'm making a custom guitar right now for the Nashville Soccer Club. Jim Beam was just here yesterday. We're doing a custom instrument for them. So we're doing a lot of different cool projects like that. We have a 2-year waiting list on our Delgado instruments. We're back ordered on La Tradicion right now, mainly because of the logistical issues that the pandemic has created.
Right.
But still continue to plan to do that. And then we have our music venue where my wife has taken that over, so I don't have to be so attentive to it, and my daughters help her in that. So we want to continue to see that do well. And I've always had the dream of doing a mariachi conference here in Nashville. So that's still something that I want to do.
Yeah.
So when time
We talked about that several times. Yes.
Yep. So I always say I'm a very patient person. I never like sometimes people think, oh, he forgot about that. It's like, no. I had, this other thing is taking some of my time right now, but I'm going to come back to it. And if this show does well, or other things, we're blessed with that, then if I can now have those financial resources to direct them towards other things, then that's what we do. We try to reinvest in the business so we can reinvest in the community. And ultimately, my goal would be to have some wing of the business be a nonprofit to where we can donate a lot of these mariachi instruments to schools. So
great. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Manuel, thank you so much for meeting with us. We're running out of time here. Is there any other things you want to mention before we sign off?
Oh gosh, just thank you guys again. Thanks to the listeners who are hearing this. I think the music community is so important. I guess the one thing I would want to say is if we work more towards uniting together, especially La Raza, we'll have a lot more strength in numbers rather than looking at what somebody else is doing and just criticizing. And I would really encourage the people that really want to try to build something and be okay with not getting the credit for it, is how you end up building a greater community, and then everyone benefits from it. So when the tide rises, all the boats at shore should rise.
Agreed.
Should win.
And that's a great sentiment, especially for the podcast we're doing. United we stand.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank you so much for all your time and for telling us your story and telling our audience your story. It's great. And you are a prominent member of our Latino community, and we're proud of you.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to know you both. Thank you so much for including me in this. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Manuel.
All right. Take care. All right.
Bye.